He doesn't like it, and he used to take the bottom. So I'm sure Bob Pitts called the next guy and said, "Hey man, there's a guy down here, blah blah blah, just got beat, but he could be stopped. He could be stopped. I saw this and I saw that or whatever." And I remember the second fight was against some guys back in the days called Pocono Rick. And I remember Pocono Rick had a dog called Meatball, and he was a two-time winner, hard biting dog.
Was they from the Poconos though? I think so, right?
Yeah. He was from the
Right.
Poconos.
Okay.
So that was his second. Same deal. Wino whining. I mean, Meatball was putting it on. I think about the hour mark, Wino came on top and just started putting on Meatball. I don't remember if Meatball quit or they picked him up, to be very honest, but he lost. So the third match was against TKO Kennels, who ran the Rascal dogs, who had Rascal Jr. or Rascal at their yard at one time. They ended up buying a yard of Rascal dogs, with the infamous dogs. And he was also a two-time winner. So it was actually two-time winners going for the championship. He ended up beating him as well. So now he's a champion. And then the fourth time was against Champion Shaka. Champion Shaka was the dog that defeated the infamous Bolt Action.
Right. Now you should. Well, okay. You said the fourth time. I thought Chaka was his fifth one. That's when he became grand champion.
No.
Oh, which one you made? So it was after
No.
Chaka he became grand
Chaka
champion.
never became grand champion.
No, I'm talking about Wino, because you said
Yes.
you said Wino beat Chaco for his fourth.
Right. They both were champions.
Right. So I thought it was 5 when you make grand champion. So that means he had to get
but
it going to another one.
Wino went to another one after
Oh,
Chaka.
okay. I thought Chaka was his last one, but okay.
No.
Yeah.
He thought so here we go. Everybody who has seen Wino knows that Wino doesn't win anything. He's not a short order dog. We're gonna beat you on gameness and heart. That's Wino. Because he wasn't really nothing to write home about, but he used to get it done. And so back, I remember, because there was about 50 to 100 people there, and I remember Gary Hammons came down from Texas to New York to see him go, and we all used to have a pool, like how long you think it's gonna go? There was a raffle, so people like putting like, an hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it may be.
Right.
Some guy out of the blue said 30 minutes. Everybody looked at him like, yeah, okay, you don't know what you're looking at. Oh, you never seen none of these doors go. Oh, you never seen none of these doors go.
Right.
So, long story short, they let him go, and for the first time in his entire career, Wino find out that he can use his mouth early.
Mm.
And he came out and they met in the middle, and he just started biting like we never seen him bite before.
Mm.
And it was about 35-minute mark, if I'm right. I don't think it went past the 40-minute mark, and they picked up Shaka. Now, again, I'm gonna be fair, but again, it's all about management. Shaka went into Bolt Action, and that was a long ride.
Right.
So maybe they bought him out too early. Who knows? Who knows? But Shaka ended up losing. They picked him up, And again, Wino was a really good dog. He bit good, and he was game. He's what you wanted. He started biting good as he got older. Let me rephrase that. But
Okay.
but he was a good, solid dog. And another dog that comes to mind, who I think had it all. Good mouth. I only seen him go once. Was Jesse's grand champion, Midnight. Yeah, one of the best dogs I've seen to this day. Good dog, great air, strong, very smart, good mouth.
And
Again,
what dog did you see him go into?
he went into, I don't remember the name of the dog, but I remember the guy he went into. It was Vinny Capignon, a guy called Vinny Cap.
It wasn't the
You know,
Rusty Hooks dog, right? Was it?
no, no, I
Oh,
never.
okay.
No, I think that was after that.
Oh, okay.
But I got to see him fight a guy called Vinny Campagnon, and I think that only went like
Oh, did he go
25,
by the
30
name
minutes.
Camp?
Yeah, V Camp.
Right, V Camp. Right, right. Got you.
Yeah, yeah. Again, you seen a lot of dogs go. It's like my other good friend for many years, the Virgil dog, the other Virgil, Gambler's Virgil,
Oh,
another good
okay.
dog,
Right.
another good dog. Something that, and his daughter Talon to me was the cream of the crop. I love that Talon dog. To me, she was an ace. Another good dog.
Right.
I mean, I got to see so many May. I got to see May defeat the grand champion Chichi dog. I actually ref that fight.
Oh,
You know,
Chi-Chi,
I,
that's didn't Fat Bill own that dog, Chi-Chi? I think.
yeah, Fat Bill owned Chi-Chi, and the guy called Prosec Tom ended up he had May. May was another good solid dog.
Right. Oh, you should from
Uh,
Prozac Kennels. Were they from New York? Prozac?
no, Prosec was from they were all Maryland, from
Oh,
Maryland.
okay. Oh,
Prosec
okay.
was from Maryland. But like I said, I got to see so many dogs. Sometimes we get into conversations with people like, oh shit, yeah, I was there, or I ref that one, or I seen, because you see so many good dogs go, but
Right.
there was really good dogs. And getting back to the Northeast, we had really good dogs. There was no doubt about it. You know,
Right.
we had really good dogs. You didn't have to go far. You had, like I said, you had the Jersey boys. You had Lenny from Jersey, really good dog guys. And then you had another. You had also who I left out was the infamous Alan Warman, Island Kennels.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, the original owner of Buck.
Right. Right.
He owned Buck, he owned Booker, a dog called Grand Champion Booker. He owned Buck. He also owned the Booger dog. He was heavy into the Thoroughbred dogs. Allen was one of the guys. He was hard to beat on Long Island.
Right. Right.
I mean, he was beating everybody, and and he was the first person I ever went into. At
Alabama.
17, at 17 years old, everybody was laughing. They thought, I came with a bulldog and I beat Allen. They couldn't believe it. A kid from Brooklyn with a yard of maybe 5 dogs came down and a nobody. I was a nobody.
Right.
But like I said, at that time, me and Steve Black were really close friends. So me and him were always riding together. It was only three of us: me, Frank, and Steve. And nobody knew who Steve was. Steve only had one dog in his backyard. No, two dogs. And and you're going into these guys who had 20, 30, 40 dogs.
Gotcha.
And so like I said, it's not. It's the dog. Forget about. You could be anywhere. You can have a great dog. And then from there, you start learning, you start looking at dogs, you start meeting people, you gain respect, and you keep it moving. But these days, the game has changed so much.
Yeah. Definite. Definite.
Everybody's the master conditioner. I mean, nobody can tell you. And like I think we had this conversation before about a keep. To me, keep is exactly what it means. You keep your dog away from every fucking thing when you're working him. You're
Mm.
keeping him up. You're making sure he's being fed. You're making sure he's wormed. You know, um, and for me to sit down and tell you, oh, you got to do this and this. You got to walk your dog 40 miles. You got to no that works for me.
Right.
It's not gonna work for you. I can give you the basics. So I used to laugh when people used to buy keeps or pay people nobody can show you. It's common sense. You gotta you gotta make sure your dog's healthy. You gotta walk the dog. You gotta let the dog recover. You go out and work out. You go ahead and run 5 miles the first day. Don't tell me that your legs aren't gonna be hurting you.
Right.
So why wouldn't that be the same for your dog? So working the dog is common sense. There's little tricks of the trade, of course.
Right.
How to bring them low to their proper, for you could get, usually the bigger dog wins. That was the way it used to be back then. If you got a 38-pound dog and you don't know how to bring them to 38 and you're showing them at 42, and then you got a guy who knows that his dog's a 42, at the end of the day, the 42 is going to beat him if he's a good dog. It's just too much weight to give up, believe it or not.
So from your perspective, what goes into finding out a dog's proper weight?
Well, that's when you school the dog. You know, you want to school. You want to see a dog a little heavy because you want to get an idea how he's breathing. Then and then you start cutting them down. You start cutting them down slowly. You roll them again, and you see how he's biting, how his air is. And then again, you don't want to bring a dog like a skeleton, but let's just say if you got a 42-pound pit weight dog and you're rolling them at 45 and 46 just to get schooled, you're looking at him. But you figure somewhere he's 45, so maybe I could take 3 pounds off of him. So now he's a 42-pounder,
Right.
And then you rather go a little heavy, meaning maybe a half pound off, a pound heavy, than being too light.
Which is a lot in the dog game, pit game. Like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
that
yeah.
pound and a half is still a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And you're dealing with people that know what they're doing. They add other things to their conditioning. That was the era of the steroids and
I, w-
whatnot. And
that was going to be my next question to you. What's your perspective on steroids? Did you use them, or what could
sure,
you?
I did. Sure, I did. But I didn't get too technical with it because a lot of these guys were just guessing. You get this amount here, this amount there. I really got into the steroids a little bit more when I met a vet that when I lived in Maryland, I lived across the street from Fort Detrick, which is an army base, which is a base that was based on chemical warfare.
Hmm.
Okay, so anthrax, all that other shit was being developed there, and they used to work on lab rats, whatever it may be. And I remember me walking my dog, and this man in fatigue says, "Hey, man, that's a good-looking cur." I said, "What?"
He called him a
And
cur, huh?
yeah, he laughed. He says, and he was from the South, so it was sir and son. That was his way of talking. He goes, "Oh, that's a good-looking dog, son." Yeah, I says, "What do you know about that?" And he smiled and he goes, "Oh, my brother used to dabble into the dogs, so I know a lot about the dogs." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Do you have a vet?" I says, "No, not really." He goes, "Oh, look, take my card." And basically, this man was the colonel of the base. He was the head veterinary doctor at Fort Detrick, and he used to have his own after work. He at his home he had a house in the country, and downstairs he had a vet office. And I used to go visit him a lot, and not visit him. I used to take my dogs there, and he used to take care of them very, very, very cheap. And he knew what I was into, so I can talk to him very openly. And he said, "Yeah, I know what you want to do." And he started putting my dogs in a steroid regimen until I learned, So who not better than a doctor, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. If
He
you
told me
if you're gonna learn from somebody,
yeah, and he taught me also blood doping, you know,
Mm.
and that's taking blood
Taking
out of the
blood and,
dog.
and then replacing it back in.
Yeah, yeah, and this guy was like my savior. I learned a lot from this guy. I mean, I remember when that disease came out, that Babesia.
Right,
I
right,
think everybody in the 80s and 90s, they all know what it is.
right.
And you used to roll them, and your dog used to come home, and 2 or 3 days, your dog looking like doodle on the stick. His gums are white. He's not feeling good. And I came across that because I I rolled into a guy who came from New York. And a
This
matter of
is
fact,
why this is why you was living in Maryland.
I'll tell you who it was. I mean, it was Dirty Steve from New York came down to Maryland, and we drove somewhere to another dog man's place. I'm not gonna mention his name because he was involved in something else, and we rolled, and we actually did an off the chain. I ended up winning, and me and Dirty Steve, and about 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days, my dog started acting kind of funny, and I found out that he had the Babesia.
Mm.
So I took him to my vet, and he said, okay, he looks like he has his white blood cells are down, whatever. And so he put medication into him. What he put into him, I really don't know. Um, so I took him home. The dog started feeling good, looking good. But then again, a week after that, he fell right back to that stage. So I took him back up to the vet, and he was like, "Man, you know, you want to hear something?" He told me, he says, "You know, I have people that have bought their beagles here with the same symptoms. You know, so
Right.
at that time, if I remember, I had that little magazine that Fat Bill had at one time, the Game Dog Times,
Game
whatever
dog
it was
time.
called,
Yeah, I know what you're
whatever
talking
it
about.
was. It was either that or the Journal, one of those two magazines. There was a doctor, or there was an ad in the back page for medication that was curing the Barbizia. So I took that magazine to my vet because he already knew what I was doing. He was aware of what I'm doing. I told him, "Hey, Dr. Mitchell, look at this medication." He looked at it. He ordered it. When he got the medication it was from Russia, if I'm right. He broke down what it actually was because he's a doctor. You
Right.
know, he read the ingredients. He goes, "Oh, I know what this is," and we ejected the dog. He treated the dog, and not only did he get rid of it, but my dog wasn't a carrier any longer.
Mm.
You know, and that medication at that time, it was basically, I, I forgot the name of it, but it's given to people. That is given these days to people who deal with lupus.
Oh, okay.
It's an antibiotic. I forgot what it's called. Hydroxychloroquine. I forgot. It was some type, and that's what it was. But that was that strain of Barbizia.
Right.
Because for what I understand, it got kind of worse down the road. But again, when you're dealing with dogs, you got to be prepared to know how to become a caretaker to these animals.
And you know something that when I spoke about Mr. Bill earlier, that's why I was leading to because whatever he was doing at that car dealership, he was making pretty good money. And when he knew he was going to be full time with these dogs, he left the car dealership just to get a job at the vet for way less pay, just to start learning how to care for the dogs afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, but see, his wife used to work for the vet.
Yeah, that's the same vet he used to work at with his
Yes,
where his
yes,
wife
yes.
was at.
Exactly.
And you know what's funny also? I don't know if you but know about this other vet from New York. His name was Evo.
No.
Marty, it was Marty. He was a man. I met this guy like in '85, man, and he was a vet. He was around like 82, 83. He was in his 80s. He was an old man, but he had lost his license and I'm pretty sure some New York dudes, they dogmen will probably know who I'm talking about too. He had lost his license to practice veterinary vet because he never reported none of the dogs to the, when you suspect dog fighting, you're supposed to
Right.
report that. So he
Right.
lost his life. He had a house. He had a house in the Bronx. And yo, do you know this guy? Before I started seeing pictures of what's the duck? They got pictures of Cockney Charlie Lloyd and all of them stuff. Yo, this guy had original pictures from back then, man. He said his uncle, it was a family member, an older family member, used to be partners with Charlie Lloyd. And that's when he told me Charlie Lloyd had a saloon back in Hell's Kitchen back in the days. That's where he got the bulk of his money for to buy the dogs where he imported the dog. This guy had pictures, man. And I'm like, oh man, I messed up on a whole bunch of real good old photos of good dogs from way back in the early like 1908, 1910, 1920, I'm around that era. And
Right.
one thing he told me that stood out because like I said in the beginning, I just had got used to seeing, dogs scrap over just fighting for the female just to be the dominant one to do the breeding. When I started seeing the pits, when I first got that dog from Grady Cummins, I never really seen no real serious injuries. But once I started messing around with the pit, I went into this store that you might know. I know you know it out there in what's the pet shop out there? champion Switchblades owner.
Yeah, I know who you're
Yeah,
talking
I
about. I
went
know who you're
down
talking
there
about.
and I
Hmm.
seen what an injury really was now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
I went, they took me to the guy in the Bronx and he took care of the dog, the guy Marty. It's either Mari or Marty.
I
And
think it's Marty.
okay. And he the one that told me, he said, let me tell you one thing about these dogs. If you can't do what you're supposed to do after they do what they do for you in that pit, basically what he was saying, if you can't take care of them afterwards, you don't need to be with them. And I
Yeah, yeah,
respected that.
that's true.
I
Yeah,
respected that,
that's
man.
the truth. Anytime I went and did anything, I always had a real good friend of mine, and he was the man. You
Yep.
know, I mean, why not be prepared? You know, I looked at things very differently, but you know, why not be prepared? You know,
And see that
let 'em recuperate and cover medications. Don't go there and look around the crowd to see who can hand you, who wants to give you medicine because you didn't bring none. What kind
right,
of
right.
bullshit is that?
And
You know?
that's what stopped me because instead of me learning what I should have learned from him, like I said, I was about 16 then, 17. Instead of me learning what I should be learning from him, I just was putting everything on him. And my first couple of, like interactions with matching dogs, like my first 4 or 5 shows or whatever. But then maybe about 6 months to a year, I stopped going by his house. And then when I went by his house one day, yo, his whole like he had the trees and all the grass was real high, and I was like, man, only thing I suspect he must have passed away. You know what I'm saying? Because he was an older fella. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I just like lost interest in the dogs, as far as me doing it. Because like I said, I can't take care of them. And that meant a lot to me when he told me that, man.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the most important part. You know, afterwards, the aftercare. A lot of people again, they're
Hmm.
naive. You got to learn. You got to learn. And I mean, there's a lot of things that's negative, but I don't really want to bring those things up because sometimes it's just it makes us dog men look bad. You know, because the one person does something stupid. But you have a dog, you won with him, take care of him.
Exactly.
You know, he
One
he's your prize fighter. Take care of him, feed him good, do his aftercare. Don't
look,
go somewhere without nothing and ask people, you have this, you have that. You look kind of like what's wrong with these guys? The best thing I used to see guys come in Escalades and trucks and jewelry and no medication.
right.
No medication. And then depending on somebody to jump and say, "Hey, man, I'll help you," but meanwhile, they don't want to give nobody money for the medications they put in. So, again, there's all types of dog, man. It depends where you want to go, how you want to be known as, and how respected you want it to be.
Exactly. So you kind of went a little longer.